I wanted to start with the origins of the term gentrification. It was coined by Ruth Glass in 1964 to describe a phenomenon that she was observing in London, and where she was seeing neighborhood change take place. And her emphasis was really, as you can see in the quote, on class, zeroing in on displacement of people and changing character. And flipping ahead to today, a more contemporary definition really emphasizes economic change in historically disinvested neighborhoods, where higher income residents move in, and there's demographic change, not necessarily the class-based demographic change that Ruth Glass observed, but more in terms of educational attainment and race. And then in digging into the research, and especially some of the really recent kind of questions on really characterizing and understanding what gentrification is, I thought the picture got a lot more interesting in terms of what we're measuring when we talk about gentrification. In some ways, I think we've all recognized a neighborhood that looks gentrified, but what do we really mean by that? And so what I learned is that researchers are very good at measuring changes to places. So we're very good at looking at the average income or rents in a neighborhood or an area and understanding if they've changed, if they've gone up or down. But we have a much harder time measuring changes to people. And so what this means is that when we see average income go up in a neighborhood where, let's say, a new rail line has just been built, we don't always know if the reason that happened was because people were displaced, existing residents were forced to move out, and new residents moved in, or whether the effect is something that I think we all hope happens when we build new transit, which is that residents have access to better jobs, and so income goes up because the same people are better off. And that's, literally often a case that we make when we are advocating for new transit. So given those confounding factors that I mentioned, I challenged myself to really describe when we talk about gentrification, what really makes us uncomfortable? What are we really worried about? I'll say for myself, as someone who really loves cities, I don't want to think of myself as someone who is an opponent of change. The dynamism of cities is something that we really value about urban areas. And I landed on two leading factors. So the first, of course, is displacement, and that, really goes back to the original 1964 definition. And that's important to me because that's a negative impact on people, which I think is what we really care about when people have to leave a neighborhood that they love and that they call home, not from their choice. And the second to me is homogenization. So the loss of a distinct neighborhood character, and this can be, an enclave or a landing pad for newcomers to an area that has a really interesting and distinct culture that sort of dilutes and becomes more generic, and that evolution into a kind of sameness that I think we all recognize as part of a gentrified neighborhood that can have some positive aspects to it, but also, not necessarily, we wouldn't want all of our cities to look all like that. So I'll end just by saying that I think, like many of you, I'm still in the process of figuring out what this means.